Nigerians talking about what they want to see back in their country and what steps need to be taken and how the rest of the world really hopes that Nigeria becomes better. Because there was once a time when Nigeria had the most educated population in Africa. We don't seem to have done much with that.
You see, when you look at Rwanda today, and people talk about Rwanda, and I tell them that Nigeria had crossed that part before. You remember after the war, you know, Nigerian, you know, had PAN. We had, you know, Nigerian Airways. We had shipping lines. We had, you know, infrastructures were coming up.
Industries were
springing up. We had PAN, you know, and all of that. Then at some point, you know, it just nosedive. And that now we look to, you know, those good old days with nostalgia. That's why a lot of people in diaspora would want to see, you know, that, you know, Nigeria rise again. Because remember, Nigeria is, you know, the most populous black nation on the face of the earth. And then, because of its market also, Africans look, you know, forward to Nigerian election. I had also opportunity to interact with so many international journalists that came to observe the Nigerian election. And one thing they consistently said was like, look, they look at Nigeria from, you know, the twin pillars of the West African region and then the African region. And it's like, you know, a big player in the West African region and then also because of the market and the potentials, you know, in the African region. And so you need to also look at it from, you know, these 2 points. And that's why we cannot afford to consistently get it wrong.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Ambassador Joe Keshi. Anxiety, it seems that anxiety is beginning to rise. Nigerians in the diaspora, and that speaks to them as they're spread all over the country. First of all, are they enough? Or is their voices or the gamut of their voices strong enough to create a change back home, especially because of the advantage of a better exposure that they have? They understand the need, even if people at home don't understand why Nigeria needs to be better than it is today, or why it needs to have a much better result or a better reputation that it has developed over the years. First of all, what can Nigerians in the diaspora everywhere, what can they do to help out?
I will answer the diaspora question in a second. But can I go back to the question you asked? Who is going to lead the conversation in this country? Because we all talked about having a conversation. Let me say this about having a conversation. I think one of the tragedies and growing tragedy that has fallen on this country is the growing intellectual laziness or the death of intellectualism in this country. To start with, today's political class, the characters that the military handed over handed over this country to in 1999, nobody in that group has the intellectual capacity to be able to engage in a conversation or to start a conversation in this country. Just take a look at their background and their ability. Compare it to a period in the 70s, for example. Look, somewhere in the 70s, when we were discussing the military handover or military quitting politics, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe came up gave a lecture at the University of Lagos where he propagated this theory of the diarchy for about 4 or 5 months in this country. That was the debate going on in this country. And go and look at the papers. Go and look at Daily Times of old. You will see intellectuals, professors from the university, student union, people from everywhere, taking up Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe on his proposal. Or when Chief Obafemi Awolowo wrote a book, go and look at the reviews made by people in those days. And today you find the characters we have. They are simply intellectually lazy to talk about leading a conversation. And that's the tragedy here, because even in the universities, which everybody seems to be failing in this country. I mean, when I was growing up, it was a joy to listen to professors on the stations we have. It was a joy to read quite a number of people from the universities and the papers in those days. But today, what do you have? The space has been given to some characters that has created so much problem for this country that is unbelievable. As you rightly said, where has all those so-called educated Nigerians gone to? And where some of them decide to speak, they even compound the problems because they become so partisan that it becomes difficult to even understand their mindset. So it's going to be difficult to find anybody to lead the conversation because today everybody just wants power and what they can get from power. No, very little care about this country because when you look at the body language and some of the things we hear in terms of campaign itself, you begin to wonder whether the people that are speaking understand what they are saying. Now, to the issue of the diaspora, look, I've always said I was involved in promoting the diaspora, agenda in this country for so many years when I was at the cabinet, in government. But look, when you take a look at the diaspora, I've always made this point all over. The diaspora, they have a strength. They have the resources, they have the intellectual capacity to be able to help this country. But I'm not convinced that they are going to do that in politics. And I've always told many of them this. I believe that if they had listened attentively and carefully to some of the agenda we try to push for the diaspora, the diaspora would have done better in 3 areas that would have helped change this country and begin a new conversation about how to do things. We have enough capacity in the diaspora to change, our health situation in this country. We have quite a number to help us in our educational system because, look, as soon as you create a new university, you create problems in other universities. Because quite a number of lecturers move in and get promotion to become professors in another university. But there are tremendous, very good professors, Nigerians, in large number in the diaspora that can impact on education. You also have in ICT, quite a number of them that can help change. Look, if we begin to take things sector by sector and begin to change things, we might just find out that it will help create that conversation because people will begin to say that, oh, they've done it. Look, I'll give you an example that I've always said, and I'm convinced of that because of my own situation today. I've always said, if, for example, you have a very good hospital in this country and everybody discovered that that hospital is very good and other hospitals are not getting as much client as this hospital, what would happen? That hospital will now begin to find out, why is this hospital doing better than mine? And what would they do? They would make efforts to improve their own standard. If we can get the diaspora that, look, I don't think the diaspora will do well in politics, let me just say this, but I think that there are other areas where I have so much confidence that the diaspora can help change the narratives of this country. If you take those 3 sectors and you get the critical mass that is necessary to make impact into this country, you'll be amazed at how the impact on health, impact on education, impact on ICT can begin to change the narratives of this country. And it might actually help us in doing things better because the ICT folks will probably bring a lot of innovation into our electoral process. Because again, I make the point, it's very shameful. We spent 4 years trying to organize election and almost ending up in a failure. I mean, we as people, we should just sit down and begin to think of this. Take for a second if you send your kids to secondary school and every year he fails or gets to the end of his school term and fails. As a parent, how would you feel? That's the way we should be looking at this country, that 4 years, we can't organize election with minimal or no problems at all. And yet, we keep saying we are the leading country in the continent. No, giants of Africa. We can do better than we are doing today. And I emphasize again that we really don't have to get the diaspora into politics. Some of them might not like this because this was what created, for me, this was what diverted the diaspora agenda that we started in this country under President Obasanjo. But if we can focus on them in terms of getting the professionals to do 3, 4 things in these areas that I have itemized, you might see, just give a period of 5 to 10 years, you see a tremendous change in those sectors, and that will change the narratives of some sectors in the country.